Namaste and welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Serenity. Again, we're going to answer a question from the jar. Try to answer it within a 10-minute time frame, impromptly, without any preparation. And of course, that being said, it's going to be very imperfect because I am, and you may hear a lot of background noises in the background. Forgive me for that. I am now going to set my timer. And I pulled out a question, and it says, I'm alone. How do I handle my loneliness? I am alone. How do I handle my loneliness? Solitude only arises when you accept loneliness. Solitude only arises when you accept loneliness. So I guess this person is feeling lonely, and it's, I think, a feeling many of us experience as human beings. We experience loneliness basically because we have this misconstrued idea that we're separate little entities based on these body lines and this personal mind and this personality that we call me. Or you would look at me and say you, and I would look at you and say you, and then when I look at myself, I say me. This personality, who I think I am, is separate. And we've been conditioned over the years to believe in our separateness, to see this distinction because of the body lines, that this body is who I am, and I'm over here, and you're a body over there, so therefore we are separate. There's distance between us. And the more distance that is between us, the sense we are alone. And when we feel alone, we automatically associate the emotional component of that, which is loneliness. Loneliness is a sensation. It belongs in the fear emotions. It belongs in the emotions that are less than wholesome, the love emotions that bring us up. That loneliness is a sense of being separate, not being connected to the human beings around us, or the beings around us, or to this universe around us. And often, when we look really deeply, when we begin to explore deeply the question, who am I? We will realize that disconnect is through the source of from where we come from. That's where we feel most disconnected from. Self with a capital S. Now, all that being said, it's not going to matter to anybody who's just saying, I'm lonely and I don't like being lonely because I'm alone. But loneliness and aloneness are not the same thing. Being alone means that I'm in a physical, geographical, if I'm still adhering to time and space reality, I'm in a different space, I'm in a different place, geographically, and there is no other beings around me. So that is alone. And then we can say, well, no other human beings around us. We still may have pets, we still may have plants, we still may have whatever around us. But if we don't have another human around us, we may equivalent that to being alone. And then we have the experience of a loneliness, which is an internal sensation of disconnect, a total sensation of separation, and it's not a pleasant sensation. It's not a pleasant sensation to have loneliness, to feel lonely. Whereas for many of us, that experience of being alone is very pleasant. For me, I enjoy my solitude. I enjoy being alone. And I never see myself as lonely. Well, there's sometimes I'm lonely, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I feel very separate and disconnected. And I can be in a crowd of people and feel lonelier in a crowd of people than I feel when I'm alone. And that, again, makes a distinction between the two words, right? Alone and loneliness. But I don't tend to feel lonely when I'm alone because I have embraced that loneliness as a part of solitude, because I love solitude. Solitude is where I rejuvenate. Solitude where I find the self within myself, where I can reconnect to that which I am really feeling lonely about not being connected to. And that is the source of who I am, the self within. So ending loneliness, definitely we need to connect with every human beings. We are social animals. We belong to a social pack. We want to belong. It's, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Love and belonging is right up there. After safety and security, the third rung on the ladder. So we do need that sensation of being loved and belonging as human beings, to belong into the pack. But that goes beyond just ending loneliness. That goes beyond to recognizing the truth of who we are. We are not separate. And this is where the loneliness comes in. Because as soon as we develop these ego minds and we start to see ourselves as separate bodies, so therefore separate beings, and I'm not you, you're not me, we lose that touch that we are all one, right? And yoga helps to bring us back to that realization. It sounds pretty woo-woo at first, but the more you study it, the more you, in both psychological terms, physical terms, and spiritual terms, you start to realize the truth of that, right? That these bodies are not who we are. Therefore, I am not separate from you just because I'm in what appears to be a different form, right? The source of your form and the source of my form is the same source. We all come from the same quantum field, if you want to call it. The boson and the quarks, the leptons, the vibrating energy that was discovered in CERN, a few years back, that show that, well, they call it the God particle, the Higgs field, which is this source where all these protons and protons originate from, and these electrons and neutrons, the subatomic particles, come from a field of vibrating energy. They're not form, they're not matter, but they're made into form through observation of them, through several things that happen in the quantum field. And so there we have form, subatomic particles becoming atoms, and we're all just atoms vibrating electrons around our nucleus, so many. And of that form that I'm looking at, when I look at you, I have to realize that 99.5% of that form is just space, dark matter, no form, no matter, right? It's just space. But because I can see 0.5 of that, and it forms a body, what I can see with observe through my senses, then you become form and I become form, and we become different. We look like unique and different forms, because my body is yours. My body's not like yours, right? My body's not like the dogs. My body's not like the plants. It's different. So I start to feel that separateness and that need to protect this. And I create an ego, an idea of who I think I am. And my personality comes in play. And just like my body is different from yours, my personality is different than yours, right? My life experience, my life story is different than yours. My reaction, therefore, to life is different than yours. And that difference creates that sense of loneliness, because we want to be able to be understood, to be seen, to be understood, to be validated for this thing that we created in our minds. It's not even real because of these separate bodies and forms. And that creates a sensation of loneliness when we don't get it. And it's almost impossible there's 8.5 billion people on this planet, human beings on this planet, not to mention all the other beings on this planet. Yet we believe that this little being has to be validated and seen and heard so that I don't feel lonely. And we fail to recognize the beauty in aloneness, the beauty in solitude, that we can get away from this busy world for a while and explore who we truly are, the self, which is never alone, which is never separate from the other form in front of me or away from me, or I'm thinking of, if I am physically and geographically alone in a space. And that we explore, and the more we explore inward, that sense of loneliness and aloneness, and begin to question, well, who am I? Who is this separate thing I consider I? And then the I becomes I am, which is a copulation of all living beings. And this I amness can take us from loneliness to the beauty of experiencing solitude and growth. And then when we're there and we recognize that there is no loneliness, there is no aloneness other than what I've created in my mind, then I can expand outward and feel that connection with all beings, and we become interbeings, as Thich Nhat Hanh would say. We recognize our interbeingness with everything. And if we can recognize our interbeingness with everything, then there is no loneliness. We recognize we're never alone, even though the physical body may be in a space far away from other physical bodies. We're not alone, because we are not the physical body. We're not separate bodies. We're not separate minds. We're not separate personalities. Those are things that we're not. And of course, that's involved a lot of realization. So this person's just asking, how can I not be lonely? May find this too woo-woo for their liking, but I would simply say, start embracing your solitude and start questioning what it is that's inside you that feels lonely. Because you are not the loneliness. You're not the body or the mind that feels lonely. You are that is observing the human feel lonely. Right? And that is an amazing realization when we get there. And we can only get there when we're alone and we're experiencing that solitude. So, I hope that answers your question. My time is buzzing off. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste.